Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Wendy Rowley, and this is the 2025 Great Global Healing Party Fall Equinox. I'm going to talk for 15 minutes, which is unusual. And the reason I'm going to do this is because this was quite an unusual week. If you are subscribed to the Great Global Healing Party email reminder list, and you got the second email today, hopefully you read it, because it was basically a critical alert message. I'm not sure if I did this. Okay, I got the thumbs up. We've got good sound and video. I don't know whether I did this on Monday of this week or whether my email login for pretty much everything, along with using Google, which was a Gmail, along with using Google Authenticator, got messed up. And it's possible I did it, trying to set up the Authenticator through Gmail for that, or it's possible the website's gotten hacked. But either way, for 2 to 3 days, I was locked out of everything. And instead of going into the difficulty of tech today, I know many people that don't live stream anymore because of the stress of it, but when you do a healing event of this nature, you have to do it live. But I'm going to share with you some stories while we wait with this 15-minute period, if you would be so gracious, those of you who are listening, so that those who didn't read the new email, or they just figure, I know I can go at 7:30, and they're at the Wonder of Human Design channel, and they're not finding me, or us, because we do this together. So I don't usually share my personal self, but I'm going to tell you some stories. I'm going to tell you another side of handling stress. So I had the lockout. I tried like mad multiple times to recover the account for Gmail. Nothing was working. They say it's a 30-day lockout. And by Tuesday afternoon, I had reached the limit. But let me tell you a pre-story first that'll make more sense. I've had an unusual life in the way of spiritual experiences. And there was a time where maybe, let's say, I was working with some elemental forces and learning some things. I think it's pretty much in preparation for what we're doing now. And I was sitting in my living room, and I had my 2 wedding rings on, and I went to take them off, and as I slid them off, they popped off my finger, and they went up into the air, and I never heard them land, and I never found them, which is fairly impossible because there was no place for them to go but forward onto the rug. And I looked around and never found them. So I went to a spiritualist reader I know to see what she could find out in the way of information from her friends on the other side of the veil. And she told me that the elementals had taken them, the divas, the elementals, had taken them to teach me some things. Okay. So time went by, months went by, and one day after a meditation, I heard, "Come get the rings." So I went into the room where they were taken off and sat down and went into my meditative state and got into my clairvoyance, and I heard, "Watch." And on my clairvoyant screen, I started to see, I can see why people say fairies look like these little things with little wings. I started to see these 2 little shapes come down, and I started to realize I was seeing the formation of a object between them. And I started to realize I was seeing something unmanifested become manifested and start to take on a form that was more solid, and it was those rings. And I thought, well, that is fascinating. And I've since studied the idea of Orm, and I've looked into other ideas, because what was that? So, but that was, then the phone rang, and that was that. Time went by, more time went by, doing my thing, trying to work my path, keep healing. And after meditation, I heard again, "Come get the rings." So I went, got in my meditative space, and I heard, "Put your hand out." So I put my hand out and I watched with the clairvoyance as this, and this time the rings got much more solid. Not as solid as a real object, but they got solid. So I could really see they were the rings. And as they came down to sort of a feeling like they were going to be in my hand, I had this incredible sensation of joy. Just unbridled, kind of like that idea of fairy joy, just unbridled joy. And I did some research on that. And what I figured out was that the Creator creates in joy. So let's go back to the story of the meltdown of losing all of my access to my web presence right before a live event like this one. So by Tuesday, so this happened Monday of this week, I got locked out, as I'm telling people. And if you're coming into the Great Global Healing Party because you had trouble finding us, I'm spending some time talking, telling some stories, so we can wait to try to get as many people here as possible. Because we had an emergency this week, and I'm explaining it. But I'm telling a different side of that experience. So we have found out that the Creator creates in joy. So I had the event on Monday. I got locked out. I tried really hard all of Monday, all of Tuesday. And by Tuesday afternoon, I kind of reached that moment where you kind of just have had it and you just got so much emotion to process over the stress of something that you just end up having to cry and get it out. And oftentimes what we do is we don't want to cry or we want to pull it back. But I did it on purpose to let it out because I was becoming negative and down and my energy was going down. So it eventually bubbled up into these tears of frustration and I just started to let them out. And I actually went down on my knees and prayed during it for help to the Creator. And the reason I let all that emotion out was the idea, because you hear me say it in healing, if you've been in the Great Global Healing Party or if you've listened to the YouTube channels, that in order to move energy and heal, you do have to be in joy. But that is such a dichotomy because when you're at your lowest is when you need the healing. So I said, well, the only way I'm going to get into a joyful state to be able to receive my information from the higher levels where my soul and higher self are, where it is a higher vibration, is I have to get out this low energy. So I cried and I got it out and I prayed and I asked for help. And whenever I, in my lifetime, have had those experiences, which I ask for help a lot, it comes. And I'm saying this for all of us. It comes. And I was taught this in my 20s by a spiritualist reverend that I learned to meditate with. And she had said, if the energy ever becomes too great, you can pray to the Creator and ask the Creator to remove the burden you are going through because you just need a little space until you can handle it. Because it's a soul lesson or whatever's going on. So I had done that in my lifetime, and it's amazing. In 12 to 24 hours, it's like your burden feels like it gets lifted up. So in this experience, what I had was there was a flood of warmth that came into my heart, and it was almost like I had the feeling by Thursday morning, and I had to contact a couple people about what was going on. I had a friend in Colorado who was very great. She sat with me and we tried to get into the email, the Gmail, so I could get into the Wonder of Human Design YouTube channel. And she couldn't either. And so, sorry, I'm starting to ramble because it's a little hard to share yourself on the public web. So she couldn't get in either. But I started to feel all this support. And I started to feel support, I even feel from many of you who got the second email with the critical alert in it that arrived this morning into your email boxes, if you are a subscriber to those emails as a reminder. I only send out 5 a year. I personally am not a fan of spam. I don't have that much time. I don't think you do either. So anyway, I'm sharing these stories. I'm I'm saying we have a choice. Now, another part of a thing that's great to know about healing is when someone loses it, sometimes you have to step back and let them go through it. Another great premise in healing and in life is that if the charge of that energy, and I've said this in some other videos, if the charge of that, and I was taught this in a healing school, if the charge of that energy that you have that is coming through you is greater than you in that moment, the charge will rule. And I do repeat many exact phrases from a spiritual teacher because they were so beautiful and so succinct that I could never say it any better. And that was one of his sayings. And if the charge is greater than you if the charge is greater in that person in that moment, the charge will rule. So if we could get into a world where we had more compassion to people when they were upset and losing it. Now here's the tricky part, getting out of that energy. So you get that charge out, and then the person maybe can come back to center. But what is really, I sometimes question, what kind of freedom do we really have in life? And by the time I got to where I am now, and I'm with you, and I came out on the web to bring this work forward, I kind of got to the conclusion that maybe the only free will I really have, because I can't control the things around me, I can't control the people, the situations, what's happening, that's life. It's messy. But I can choose in that moment where I want to align. And I can choose attunement to where that energy is higher. And I think it's very important to make that a life practice. If you're attracted to this kind of event, you already are on that kind of a path, because you wouldn't be attracted to a spiritual event. And that's an assumption, but I think there's something to it. And we all have pain. Life is messy, and it's very messy out there on the web and on social media, and there's a lot of negativity, and there's a lot of charge. And I think we need to be kinder to each other, more gentle with each other, and hope that the person who has that charge also has a presence of consciousness enough to say, I don't like feeling this way. This is not the way I want to be. I would like to be better. There's got to be a better way. And they start the journey of searching. How can I be better? How can I treat people better? So I'm going to share one other thing, not to be lectury, but that same spiritualist reverend that I went to her meditation classes in my early 20s for a long time, a bunch of years, she had said that the most important thing that you can ever learn in life is self-love. And when you go on the healing journey, you realize that that's true. Because if you can't love yourself, you can't love another human being. There's another very interesting thing. Rudolf Steiner brought this one up. He said the design of our bodies and our spiritual nature and our spiritual energetic anatomy is such that what we take in through our senses, particularly our eyes, it's a visual world that we live in, and our hearing and our feeling and our touch and the words of people is, I looked at myself and it's almost like I threw myself out. That's funny. I threw myself out of my own thought process. So the sensing that we have, give me a second, people. Sorry about that. That's a funny phenomena. The sensing that we have, and we're just stalling a little bit because it took a while. We had a problem and we had to put up an emergency Great Global Healing Party. And we're just giving 15 minutes for other people to find us on YouTube, hopefully. So anyway, so the spiritual senses that we have are here in this physical body. They are registered in science and they're studied at the level of the brain, but they actually go all the way to the soul. And it is the soul's main recording device. And Rudolf Steiner had said that which we perceive in the world outward comes into us and is filtered through all of this particular anatomy. And then what our interpretation of what we see out there is colored by our consciousness. So it's really funny sometimes to look at everyone going crazy on the web and all of us getting upset over stuff because it's a reflection of what's within us in a lot of ways. Now, there are definitely things that are outright wrong. I'm not the poster child for what's right and wrong. I think we all know there's certain things that are wrong. But politics and all these opinions and all these different ideas and ways of seeing things, it's a slippery slope. And we all want to get there together. Another very fascinating thing that happened preparing for this, and I was very happy to get the Zoom hooked up so we have better sound, is that when I did my meditation and set this energy space for this, and I don't do a lot of prayer to set this sacred space for us because certain words and certain prayers light people up. So I give the intention of what we're doing, and I know that we're all going to do it together. And whatever prayer you all want to say, you can say. But our intention is the pure idea of, let's scrub this human consciousness grid, get rid of that stuff that's in the crystalline structure of the earth. Like you can pick up a rock and you can read energy in it, war, whatever. You can drive through a place in Pennsylvania, no signs, nothing, and go down a hill and go and see battle scenes. This stuff is imprinted into the earth and into our soul. We are one. At the periphery of the planet, at the outer greater field, we are one. Then we come down and there's all this separation and there's this schoolhouse that we're in as we learn to manage energy and work together in unity. So anyway, I hope I told a circle story that was uplifting. I find we've done our 15 minutes. I hope you found us. This is Dr. Wendy Wally of the Great Global Healing Party March Equinox. I'm just going to give a couple of highlights now, and then we'll get right into this party, because I keep them short and sweet so you can have your evening off or your day, or you're at work and you're on lunch break, or however this works. So, okay, today we are healing old religious constructs that you are not pure enough to evolve. Old religious constructs that you are not pure enough to evolve. Old religious constructs that you are not pure enough to evolve. And we picked up another one, apparently, in the United States that might be healed through today. I'm going to let Allie explain that. I looked at that a lot. Your polarity anatomy in the spirit body is very fascinating because it's out over here on both sides, and it's just like sort of like your brain is. The brain, it divides and it's divided on both sides, and it's connected into the ancestral. And it is a lot of what she said on that little website edition that we added, if you read it. This will get explained later. Bear with me. Okay, so it's not pure enough to evolve. We heal through 6 different things. So in the sound healing, this is a sound healing thing. I do the sound as a conduit so you know what's going on and we don't just sit in silence. I find it helpful for people. And it's just the sound is a representation of the healing. So beautiful melodic sounds are all of us as a soul group moving into those soul anatomies, because we're healing the individual higher self level to the group higher self level on the human consciousness grid. So the higher self is the one doing the healing. So there's the beautiful melodic sounds, and then there's brr, 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 and that's when the healings happen. And then there's a pause, and there's 6 of these. And it lets those who are healers or sensitives to know. Some people like to feel their their spiritual energy anatomy. This is the kind of work that attracts a lot of healers, a lot of people who are into this kind of stuff. So I try to give something for everyone. I'm definitely a little esoteric, but I can't help it. That's the nature of this work. So we, at the last Great Global Healing Party, we picked up a 6th one, and we're now healing up at the white, gold, blue, green healing layers, that is where the Death Bardo is. And we now are healing through a creational Death Bardo level, and I hope that doesn't freak you out, in preparation for what is all over the Wonder of Human Design website and the channelings coming out about this beautiful new Christ healing end-of-life incarnation Bardo that is coming, 2028, 29, and 30, as far as that sounds. Okay, another thing that might be helpful for all of you who are energetic sensitives is to know that between this equinox and the coming Great Global Healing Party, there will be upgrades going on in women's resplendence in that pathway at the Galactic Portal. That Galactic Highway Portal is another way to say it. That just sort of connects us to all the enlightened planets. That's the system, so they say, as weird as that is. There's going to be a lot of work at Women's Resplendence Pathway at the Galactic Highway Portal up in the noosphere to prepare for an upgrade of women's resplendence. So between now and the December Great Global Healing Party, these upgrades will be going on up at the noosphere of the human consciousness grid. There's a lot about that all over my website. I think other people are talking about it on the web. And so women's resplendence is coming back, being upgraded, and there's things all over my website and in the channelings about that. Basically, it's that feeling of knowing you are divine. And women's was taken away. I just happen to be in a female body. That's how I see it in this lifetime. Women's was taken away after the Egyptian Renaissance to prepare for us collecting up and healing the human consciousness grid at the Great Shift. And then we get it back. And that's happening and is happening. As weird as that may sound. Okay, so another interesting thing was we knew there were 3 years of Great Global Healing Party, which has been revealed as we've gone through and done this. And now we've been told about 2028, 29, and 2030 being the new Christ Healing Bardo will start to be laid in by the camps and those who do all this stuff for humanity and work with us in co-creation, I like to think. What's happening in 2027? And that's just been revealed. Apparently there will be another year of a Great Global Healing, Great Global. It won't be a healing party. It's going to be on the website and everything will be the same, but it's basically a year of a Great Global Evolutionary Party. Aliani's come out and says that there's 5 events on the equinoxes, solstices, and August lion gate in 2077, but instead of healing, they will be evolutionary setups to prepare for the new Christ circadian rhythm healing pathway in the end-of-life incarnation Bardo, commonly called the Death Bardo in Oriental medicine. It's the 3 days. You have a birth Bardo of 3 days. It's 3 days in our time frame, not the same on the other side of the veil. And at the end of life, there's a 3-day Bardo that you go through as you unhook from everything. And this is actually known in Oriental medicine. This is not my idea. So that lower karmic heavy Akash that is being cleared away, and that's going to fall away. And so this is a profound change going on for us as a species and as humanity on the planet. It's beautiful. It's right when we need it, it's beautiful. And here it comes. Okay, so we are moving apparently into a new Earth healing paradigm. So this is one of the many profound changes that happen at the great shift of a planetary cycle, the midpoint change. And as they say, we've collectively decided to go forward and take this school all the way to its, hopefully, an evolutionary and evolved, enlightened planetary system, which I like that idea. I think most of us like to think that there is some beauty in the system and there is a loving creator. So this is what I know today. Tomorrow might be different. And now I'm going to get out of the way. I am simply a representative conduit for what we're all doing. We do this together, united as one heart, to heal this human consciousness grid. Because these are our group creations. So it makes sense that only us coming together as a group can get this thing scrubbed. So if you don't mind, I'm going to get out of the way and let's see what Aliania has to say, or whether we just start our healing. But our intention is, may we scrub out all the old religious constructs of not being pure enough to evolve everywhere we can. And thank you for that. And we thank those who come, and we thank the Creator for the healing and joy, for the joy and peace of healing and thanks. And of course, permission from our ancestral and those of our blood, and whatever your prayer is. And if you want to throw some extra things in, go ahead. It's a group creation. Okay, see you on the other side. Oh, good day, you dearest beings of light. This is Alienia of Cosmic Service, Pleiadian Mother of Sound. Sometimes this one's voice gets very quiet. We're going to speak louder in case those of you who have different kinds of systems don't hear well. So if suddenly your volume went up, sorry about that. Okay, we would like to share two things before we begin this healing. One is that we thank you for coming, because she's right. This could not happen without all of you doing this. Did I say I am Alienia of Cosmic Service, a Pleiadian Mother of Sound? And when you work with beings on the other side of the veil in cooperation and healing, because there are healing systems that use healing beings, and it's part of the Creator system, as hard as that may be, there is a system where you always say you must identify yourself with your name, your title, and your service. And I entered into an agreement with this one, and that's how we work. And I came because she asked the Creator for help. Okay, that's all we're going to say. Why did we say that? Because there's somebody here that needed to hear that. Okay, so we want to thank you for coming, because humanity can only do this fast-track healing system in cooperation. And why did this happen? Because all of you prayed that you wanted something faster, that this was just getting too hard. And here we are. And there's usually someone who comes forward and just is the representative for your prayer. We're not saying she's a saint. We're not saying she's pure. We're saying she just keeps working her puzzle. Okay, and she's at a point where she could do this. Okay. There is, as she said, there is no hierarchy in spirit. There's always the middle. There's always someone who will be more evolved than you, and there'll always be someone less evolved than you. And she thinks that's a beautiful way we should look at each other on the earth, that you're always in the middle. Okay, the second thing we would like you to know is that that second healing, that is a spontaneous healing, is exactly because so many people in the United States are praying. And on that Sunday, there was a lot of prayer, as you well know. That was almost like a spiritual prayer revival. Now, religion is a tricky thing, and we are healing religious constructs in this year in the Great Global Healing Party. And this one knows people who she can say particular religious terms to, and they just go crazy. And they lose their space, and they become ungrounded. Religious construct pictures are a big thing for people. Imagine all the past lives and all those movies you see where people were persecuted for their beliefs, why people were put to death for their beliefs. It's very, very charged on the human consciousness grid. But I think all of you will maybe come to the conclusion, and already have, many of you, that all the religions basically say the same thing. Love the Creator. So the second healing that is coming around, that is spontaneous, that has been added, that where this one added a spontaneous channel that lit her up, as she said, and she had to do healing work. Now, the word light you up can be used in two ways. You can be lit up because you're so happy, or you've just done a lot of spiritual work and you can see a lot of light in someone's aura, or you can be lit up with your unhealed thing. So in this instance, we're using lit up as my unhealed stuff has lit up. That's made me become uncentered where I can't remain heart-centered. Because I think the bottom line for the metaphor of humanity is remaining heart-centered. And everyone knows that. If I can just stay in my heart, it'll be okay. So the heart-centeredness of all those prayers that went out, and the majority of the people are tired of the polarity. And we made a profound statement about the news media. that was not meant to be a polarity statement. Because from our perspective on the other side of the veil, where we can see a little bit more at the collective level of all of you, we see it. We see how the satellites ring out with certain vibrations that are affecting the youth of the countries of the world. And this is important to have an understanding of. Those satellites are right around the periphery of your planet, where your collective consciousness is. And eventually, the science for this will be proven, but it's a long way away. So we just wanted to say, remember this. Remember this when you choose what you are choosing. Okay, so this second healing had some weird statements in it. The second, well, I should say, information that spontaneously went up on the Wonder of Human Design, on the Great Global Healing Party website on Monday of this week. Another channel went up about an event that happened Sunday, trying to remain neutral and not politically charged about what it was about, who or what or where. And the message said that the United States would be taken off the old karmic Akash. And that sounded very polarizing, like the United States was special. And it's not. So what exactly is happening, and what did all of that mean? So we really wanted to explain this. In the noosphere, up at the collective consciousness, it is the level of large family groups, tribes, and nations. And as you formed these things in your collective creations over approximately about 100,000 years, at the level of spirit and the creator, as far as the sounds, your energy fields were upgraded to handle larger amounts of energy, larger collective amounts of energy, which is why we say you went from large family complexes to tribes and nations. And it is pretty much the national level, and this is known in writings from other people like Rudolf Steiner, that there are national archangels who handle, or national spirits he called them, who handle nations. And all nations have these, and it's part of the design. And with the changes on the human consciousness grid going off the lower karmic Akash, all nations are taken off that. And all nations evolve. But sometimes the Creator has within the divine blueprint, at a certain stage of evolution between the large tribes and nations, some particular percolations of inspiration into humanity that come through. So if you have this idea that there's an overarching divine blueprint of the Creator for a planetary system, and we're speaking in metaphors or the new mythology or however you want to see this, we're trying to explain energy. So if there is a metaphor or an energy or an understanding of trying to explain an energy, that within this design, if certain things happen at the collective consciousness where they're registered at what we're changing today, this Akashic Remembrance Disc, if they're registered and that vibration registers out in the greater field and has a way of getting to the big field where all the soul groups are in near perfection, meshed with the system and with the creative forces of the system and maybe there's a system where that divine blueprint percolates inspiration through the human consciousness grid to humanity. And this has been studied and looked at the spiritual level by people already. That the idea that when inventions come, they often come to several people at the same time. And you've seen that at individuals. But what about the idea of that at the collective level? That up in your collective level, in the noosphere, the Creator can also percolate inspiration into large groups as they're forming nations. And what if there's an old design of because every nation has a purpose, a beauty, and a gift. This one looked this up in the Akashic Records long ago and thought it was fascinating. And other people have talked about this. The beauty of the land is one way of saying it. And that's a whole other subject. But what if certain times in history, and there's more of these to come, we're not saying the United States is the only one. There's been these in the past. You know of very many nations that have had enlightened periods. And sometimes they're very long, and sometimes they're very short. And what if those things happening to nations, like renaissances of the golden era of India, or the golden era of the Himalayas, or the golden era of China, or the golden era of Africa, or the golden era of what's now Europe, and you've had earth changes and things were different, and you've had cultures that you haven't even discovered yet, which will be discovered. And we've given the example of Antarctica. Ice melting, there's going to be some ruins found. That's going to really throw a wrench into your whole history because it's going to be very different. And so what if there's a percolation also at these larger levels? So what if around the time of the formation of the United States, there was a percolation of a particular thing that came through the United States to bring through lots of ideas, like liberty and religious freedom, and the ability to speak your truth, and the ability to choose a little bit more. Because these were and are known to have been foundational principles that started in America and were very unique. And I don't think there's very many people in history who might argue against that, depending upon your perspective. And there's a lot of spiritual symbolism around the things within the United States, you'll see. And that's known, and it's been studied, and it's all over the web. We don't mean to go there. But what we do mean to say is that thing that the United States is going to be taken off of is the old level of the ideals that were percolated through at the time of the formation of this great nation, because it's an old consciousness. Now, we're not saying this is going to change things right away. If you've been listening to these great global healing parties or actually partaking because you want to join in, some people just come to observe. Some people just say, let me check it out. It's too weird. This girl's so weird. Or I think she's possessed. And some people will actually say, this feels true and real for me and I want this. So, like she said, you're always in the middle somewhere. And so that's all that's happening in this party. So that every nation now, here's a new idea, has an inspirational connection at the level of nations, between tribes and nations, onto the human consciousness grid. And where is that? It's up in the heart level. It's at the level of the heart and high heart level, which is the part of the human consciousness grid that'll be active in 500 years. As we say, if you're not taking part in the party, 5 lifetimes, 5 generations, or 500 years, this will be everywhere. These things that are going on. Because it doesn't matter whether this one did the fast track Great Global Healing Party. These things are going on anyway in the Great Shift. So these are some new ideas. These are some interesting ideas. And these are some things that are necessary at this time. And that's all we have to say about that. And maybe there's the idea that if that old paradigm is gone, what kind of new ideas can now percolate in to the systems and the things going on in the United States at this time as they try to form another kind of a society that takes in more of everyone. Okay, I hope you were able to receive that and it didn't light you up too badly. We're going to go do this healing now, and we're going to come back at the end and give a little more information And then this one will sign off, Dr. Wendy Rowley. As she says, I've rented out my space for the greater good of all. I hope this is true and real. Okay, here we go. All right, dearest beings of light, that silence after the number six healing was the collective unconsciousness at the human consciousness grid, at the membrane between the white, gold, and blue-green healing layer off the old Akashic remembrance disk of the human consciousness grid. And tomorrow might feel very different for many of you. All right, so this one always likes to, I hear her in the background there, she's been a very good channel this day. She wants to remind you that the puffs are when there's something being released from the membrane. So if you have a spirit body with chakras, the collective consciousness out in the greater field also has a spirit body with chakras. You have a shared higher self spirit body in three places, as we have said, on the human consciousness grid, in the interim Christ grid, Christ not being the religious one. We're talking about an evolutionary healing force that's in the planet. Eventually you'll find a new word for that, so don't get lit up on that religious picture. It's just a healing force of a planetary system. And it's out in the greater field where you all are when you first come into the planet and hook in, if you can feel comfortable with that kind of a metaphor. So that group higher self group spirit body on the human consciousness grid, when you hear those puffs, is releasing through the filters. And those of you who know about chakras know they have filters where pictures get stuck. And then when you hear the wind sound, that's energy being taken up through the 8th, 11th, and 17th filter out of the manifesting levels. And that's what that was. And so let's get to what we wished you to know this day. This Great Global Healing Party is a major turning point. It's a major turning point in the work. You have done the heavy lifting. From January 2024 up until September of 2025, you did the heaviest lifting on the human consciousness grid. And the rest of 2025, which is one more Great Global Healing Party, and that's what you are healing in 2026 at the equinoxes and solstices and the Lionsgate portal of August, where you are used as a planetary engine at August and in December. We've mentioned this before. There's a Great Global Healing Party there. And that particular kind of a healing is different. So in 2026, you're not healing the heavy level of the, and isn't it amazing how quickly that was done? All those thousands of years of history, such as the benevolence of the creative force and the creator, and the asking, as this one gave in her experience story earlier. So And she didn't ask for us. She was horrified when we showed up. Because she's like, I don't know. Anyway, get past that. Anyway, so get back into that. Get back. Okay, so the human, so that collective consciousness are the puffs and the releases. And we're getting back to just give us a second here. She kind of came in. There she goes. Okay, so let us give us a thought just to get our thought back. We were talking about, 2026 and what's happening there. And this one is already seeing it. That it's like you're coming out of a membrane after the Great Global Healing Party, and whatever 2026 is much lighter, and 2027 is even lighter. Now, we're not saying the events in your mundane world are going to seem overly different. But what we are saying is many people deep within themselves are going to feel a little different. And they're going to realize, I'd rather choose the positive. Because when you take off the charge on the human consciousness grid, it kind of makes it easier to do that. So you're going to see a lot more people, maybe through 2026, just going, the news is just awful all the time. And you might see more people going, that sounds more fun, let's go do that. And you might just see people starting to shift. And we're not going to go into what the healing themes are or what that's about in 2026, because it's such a unique and different space that you all will be in that we're going to preview it in January. And we're going to ask this one. She has another summit she wants to do, and we're going to ask her to do it then of 2026 and launch 2026 as another Great Global Healing Party, but it's the Great Global Evolutionary Party, and just use the same website. And that's what we're going to do. Whether she wants to add and evolutionary, that's too long for a website name. Even the Great Global Healing Party was long. But she said, you got to know what's going on. So anyway, we just want you to know, hang in there, particularly women. There's a particular level of women empaths, and we put a channeling on the comment section here for you and on the Great Global Healing Party website, because many, many of the heart empaths that are here and are on the earth at this time are suffering tremendously. There's different kind of empaths. There's second chakra empaths who sort of feel a level there, and that's kind of more of a lifetime thing. But a heart empath is a different thing. A heart empath is almost like someone who came to the planet with a particular setup so that they could become an empath through the system and build up a bunch of stuff that would cause them pain so that their soul would find its way to a whole bunch of stuff when it was necessary. Now, that sounds like suffering is part of the paradigm, and it's not. That was the old paradigm. And as you realize what we are talking about in the Great Global Healing Party is this is the great shift and everything is changing. And quantum entanglement is larger. And we'd like to give an explanation of quantum entanglement, particularly because this one was just asked to explain it, if she could explain it. Quantum entanglement is all of you out in the greater field in oneness creating. That's the bottom line. Quantum entanglement is all of you out in the greater field creating. That field where you are one with the Creator. That place part of you goes at the end of an incarnation where everyone says, those people who sort of have that almost passed away kind of experience, and people said, well, you were clinically dead and you came back, and the majority of them talk about a pretty profound experience and feeling this love. That's the connection you have out in the greater field. That's where that comes from. It's not the same as the gold that you've heard us mention that we use in the healing, and this one calls it the most intense pay-it-forward system, benevolent pay-it-forward system there is, because what we do here in this Great Global Healing Party is getting stored up at the group level and will be used at a Great Global Healing Party down the road. at another, because there's a couple more opportunities as you go through millions of years to come together and say, hey, let's just clean up a whole bunch of stuff. That's humanity. And you have done this on several occasions. And the best example we can give is through an experience this one has had. She went to in around 2010, she went with a group to Nepal. And it was sort of a spiritual group. And not everyone was on the path or a meditator, but they had used a particular fellow for some spiritual counseling. And so had she. So she went on the group with them. And it was before she did a whole bunch of healing and clearing. And they went up to a couple of monasteries. And in one of these monasteries, there's those orange-robed monks sitting there, and all they're doing is chanting. Chanting, 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 chanting. And we're going to come out and say that this one healed her karmic Akash. It took her 14 years. Most people it takes 5. It took her 14. And there's reasons for that, because look what's happening here. She had to do a little extra. And to bring this work in. And she got to a place in clearing through the Akash where she hit a still point where she heard all the monks chanting the Om Mani Padme Hum. And she was like, whoa. And she was told by that spiritual person on that journey that these monks do this because they're setting up a particular vibration in a particular part of the multidimensional reality that we live in. And she had that experience where she ran into one of those waves where they had put that energy there to make it easier for someone to transition on their journey, should they have hit that particular dimensional space of consciousness. And that was a profound experience. So what we're saying is that the pay it forward system happens in all sorts of ways. So there's the gold, we've talked about for now it's called the Christ Healing Spirit Body. It's on the left side of your body. Your higher self is more on the right side of your body. Higher self on the right, Christ Healing Spirit Body on the left. It's often seen as a sort of a bluish sheath over here. And anyway, this one just went off in thought because she's like, well, I've seen that before. How do I know? Get out of the way. Sorry about that. She's coming out of the closet to let you know her world's a little juicy. Okay, so anyway, let's just get back to where we're saying, because we went off on a tangent there. So there are many, many systems of benevolence, is what we're saying. You have your spiritual healing abilities. You have your collective consciousness healing abilities for group stuff. You have these percolations of ideas from the Creator. And you have a new healing paradigm that is unfolding for you for the rest of your evolution on your planetary system, which is beautiful. Because you couldn't have taken the old one forward. And that's the nature of the system, and that's the best we can say. Okay, there's one other thing we would like to say, because this one's completely out of the way again. And this is for a particular group of scientists. There's a group of scientists who are currently working on some software. And that software is to bring together something going on at the noosphere and something going on at the level here, so that they could get measurements at both at the same time. And what we would like to say to you is that you are very close. You are very, very close. Don't give up. Because it's been discouraging. And it's taken longer than you thought. But we just wanted to give you a pep talk to keep going. Because you're on the verge. And that's what we have to say about that. And they know who they are. So, this is Aliania of Cosmic Service, Pleiadian Mother of Sound, the representative for the camps on the other side of the veil who are doing this healing work at the grid level up in the noosphere. And peace be with you. You are dearly loved. Expect benevolence in all you do, and we bid you adieu. All right, people. We have a pretty swift transition that goes on. I'm Dr. Wendy Rowley. I want to remember to thank the Creator for hearing our prayers, and for Ali. And I'm not saying Aliani's the Creator or her camp or the Creator. Please let's not get our pictures out of context and out of the meaning of a full sentence. because there's a lot of that goes on. I want to thank the Creator for the healing. I want to thank those who serve that for the greater good of all through divine intelligence and grace. And I ask that this be for the best and highest good of us all through divine intelligence and grace. And I thank you for supporting this work just by showing up, because that's all that was required, because it spurs me to keep going. As messy as the tech has been while we've gone through this journey, but I think we've kind of arrived. I jumped into the web with no presence to bring this work forward, and I thank you for your support in that. So if you would like and subscribe, I don't know if we have to keep this new channel. I don't know if I'm going to get back into the Wonder of Human Design channel, but either way, that's very helpful for that algorithm. I sure hope they change that paradigm. What a carrot to chase. Anyway, have a great night, and I'll see you at the December Great Global Healing Party, the Solstice Party. All right.